Alright guys, we're back for another Dokkan battle video. So we got a little bit of a funny, silly thing going on here. The most of this video is going to be just a debate. I thought it went well. It was very, very, very mild-mannered. I didn't even really feel like there were many disagreements or craziness or something like that, but it was still, it was silly. It was fun. I enjoyed listening to Alan versus RHOADY. I mean, I've covered them several times on the channel before. So this whole, I guess, kind of like debate server thing did spawn from an idea I had. I mean, it was going to be just, like some disagreement, some of these kids pestering me about something stupid, and then enough. And then I just dropped my idea it was just going to be like a burner Discord, like a Discord created just for the purposes of like a one video, like get in here and I'll let you know why, I don't know, like why Super Trunks is terrible, right? I don't know, something like that. And then people wanted me to do it, but it's like, with me, it's just very like, I don't know, from the heart. Like, it's got to come from my heart, and I'm passionate. Like, I can't just, like, do it and then, like, artificially create it, right? Like, you guys know, like, once I get going, but, like, I can't just make myself get going. Like, it's just, it's just how it goes. So I just wanted to put this little intro here. This server was made, and then Alan and RHOADY had their little Vegito Blue versus Physical Ultimate Gohan debate. Now, I'm not really too much of a fan of either character. I mean, I would say that during the 2023 worldwide download, which a lot of this debate had, like, the conversation around, I did like Vegito Blue during that celebration. Now, I'm just at the start here, I'm just kind of like going through the evidence right here. Like, we can kind of see again, like kind of like the debate evidence, like, clips, team builds. I believe there's some calcs in here and stuff like that. I'm just gonna get all this in the start of the video, just sort of as like, I guess, sort of like context. And then we'll just go ahead and let the whole debate play afterwards. Yep, there's that additional normal, dude. That's one of my biggest complaints with that Gohan, man. That's the key can be an issue, but once that happens, here, let me not give my thoughts on the character before we get into the debate, right? Let me not do that to poison the waters or anything like that. So we just got like a lot of this again. Like, we got the APT stuff. Now, APT, I don't know, and maybe let me not even add, but a lot of times the thing with APT is, a lot of it is based upon what supports you're giving the characters, right? Like what support we're choosing to have on rotation, choosing them not have on rotation, stuff like that. Like, that was always a big point of contention with me with some of the APT way earlier on. Like, I remember OG, LR, STR Broly, and AGL Turles was a rotation. It's like, bro, that rotation gets obliterated. What are we talking about, right? Like, stuff like that. And then, of course, so here's some teams for AGL Vegito Blue. I mean, you could see some of these good characters. Back in 2023, these would have been, very effective. And we've got, some more kind of like calcs and stuff like that. I do like this, kind of like the damage that the character would take and stuff, which was just cool. So we got just like a whole bunch of stuff like that, right? A whole lot of various different evidence. So, all right, we'll get in this debate. Just kind of like a test, we'll upload this, see how people enjoy it. We'll see if there's another one, or if I'll upload one, if I'm involved in one, or whatever. Let's jump into Alan and RHOADY now.
So let me just look at the teams you posted.
Okay.
So what are the rotations for that team? I know we kind of agreed that we'd have like ideal rotations from turn one, but I had a question about your calcs about it.
Against Omega, the setup is Vegito Blue linked with Godku at the start, and then switches to the blue fusions once they actually transform, and then that's the rotations to the end. For Fusions Masu, it's blues and Godku, and then the other rotation is blues and either Future Gohan, Fusions Masu, just however the rotations work out. Sometimes Bulma, but you have the main focus rotation of the blues with Godku.
So does Bulma float?
Bulma, it depends on how the starting rotations work out, because Fusion Zamasu is a very short fight to where you don't really have time to get set rotations. Like, that's not a luxury. But sometimes she floats, sometimes she stays on main rotation. Just depends on how the starting rotations work out.
Okay.
But normally, I think she would float.
does that so? See, I'm looking at the counts you give him, and the first thing I kind of spotted was
there's
they've always
universal
got
37%
Yeah,
support. Yeah.
Which
So
if
with
so,
Fusion
say
Zamasu, like I did a
go on.
handful of runs before this, and Bulma did end up like being on the second rotation most of the time, just because of how things worked out.
Even if you even if you were like, say you could make an ideal rotation. So say they started with the Blues started with Godku next to them, and then you keep that as a rotation. Bulma would always be a floater there, wouldn't she? So like the support would not always be on the rotation. That's
I
kind
think
of my issue.
That's a fair argument there.
Okay, so I think that's just something to bear in mind with those. I'm not gonna, I don't think it matters too much in terms of the couch. So I don't think it really makes a difference for my
Yeah,
points.
it would be a 16% reduction in average support. That's not very super impactful because they have no phase 2. It's passive.
Yeah. But so okay. So Blues plus Godku, and then when the 5th year is transformed, they stay on main rotation. That's right, yeah.
Yeah, for Omega.
So something I think we should go over quick is which scenario do you prefer? Because I'd really prefer to talk about one. I don't want to be talking about Omega and Merge Zamasu. I feel like Merge Zamasu is like the one that would probably. I mean, it's up to you. It's up to you. I want to be charitable. I don't want to like make you pick, but I don't know if it's a good idea to have both of those scenarios versus.
I mean, I think you're talking about 3 fights, right? MCC, Gammas, and Cellmax.
Yeah, but it's one time period. Like a decent chunk changes between, the first week and then the second week, because Future Gohan, Sword of Hope, stuff like that. I would personally say they're arguably above Blue Duo for me.
Well, we can talk about both Fusion Zamasu and Omega, but with Omega, the only thing that would change at the end of the celebration was I would add STR Future Gohan onto the team to replace the GT duo. So that would just lead to an increase in 30% damage to Omega. So it would just increase the damage a little bit.
Sorry, can you say that again? I missed that bit.
Yes. So we can talk about both because Omega was still one of the fights during the Fusion Zamasu meta. Like, it did exist. Yeah. So the only thing that would change for the team that I have posted there for Omega at the end of the celebration I would just replace the GT duo with the STR Future Gohan.
Replace the GT duo with the STR Future Gohan. Okay.
Yeah, and it would just be a little extra support from his domain expansion.
Okay. All right. I don't think it affects too much. I mean, my main point really is just that in this discussion, are we saying that Future Gohan and Sword of Hope Trunks have also dropped, or are we saying they haven't?
Yes, well, we can discuss. It's the end of Worldwide Celebration for Vegito Blue.
It's the end. So okay.
Yeah. Okay. And then it could be the end of New Year's for Ultimate Gohan.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine by me. So I think, do you want me to make my points first, and then you can make your arguments afterwards, and you can kind of
go ahead. You're kind of the host of the debate.
Yeah, you can like rebuke my one first, and we'll go back to yours. So you see my team. For those that are wondering where it is, it's in the debate evidence channel. It should be a couple above this. If you want to click on it and look. I've made the team there. RHOADY's got their evidence as well. So that team is my ideal one. I think the hardest thing in this discussion is going to be talking about Ki, because Ki is super subjective. I know people say that they struggled a lot with Gohan. I personally never have. I've never seen how with that team, but it's not the best evidence. I've just kind of put some screenshots in there. That is a single run I did. I didn't do any other runs today. That's the only one I've done. I was going to screenshot the attempt limit to prove it, but they've taken it out. I forgot about that, so I couldn't actually do that. But I mean, I think we talked a bit before this, but were you saying that you want to accept Gohan at 24 Ki? I personally wouldn't do that. I think we should do 20 and 24.
I would accept Ultron at 24 Ki past turn 1.
Okay, so turn turn one, what are you saying? 20 key or?
Turn 1, I don't know. That's kind of random just because it's turn 1. You have no control over key at that point. But I feel like 20 is fair.
Okay. I would argue, and I know you just agree with it, but I'd say for the people listening, I would argue 20 is fair on double Orange Piccolo team because you have a lot of support and a lot of control. You know, you look at the rotations you can start with. There is not a single rotation where Althan isn't getting supported or getting rainbow changing or key or you know any of this. Like he's always got help on that team, no matter what starting rotation there is. That's part of the reason why I think it's such a strong team for that time. Something before we go forward, I'd say, do you agree that that team shown there is one of, if not the strongest team on release at the time?
Yes, in fact, I was doing runs with Ultimate Gohan yesterday, and I was like, okay, let's try and make a team for superheroes on release, and that's the exact team that I had put together for superheroes.
Okay, yeah. So
Alan, real quick, were you putting this? Not to be dumb, but there's 50 channels all over. I'm looking.
Sorry, I'll at you in the channel. You should
Debate Evidence channel.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I didn't
red
see
balloon.
Alan's team. The team you're referring to is at the top.
Yeah,
it's up pretty far.
Oh, okay. Because Alan said something as though he had just placed something there. That's why I was looking. I was like, I don't see anything. Okay. All right, cool.
No, mostly everything there is already posted.
People farming for the video on the emotes, bro. I'm gonna take the emotes out. So I think the first point I want to make, just so we get past it, you would agree, or maybe you wouldn't agree, that on release, Althan was probably the most damaging unit in the game. I say probably. I think he was. I think there's not really many arguments for other units above him.
He's definitely one of the hardest hitting units of his time. Let me pull up something I've been working on real quickly. Where did Ultimate Gohan fall on this? Okay, so I'm currently working on a project. It's not fully done yet, so I don't want to share it because it's incomplete. But at the time, Ultimate Gohan, I had him as the second hardest hitting unit in the game behind STR Final Form Cooler.
See, I've looked at STR Cooler's numbers. I really struggled to see how he was hitting harder. I mean, okay, so say for turn 1, for example, and turn 3, what numbers do you have him at?
Let me pull up my spreadsheet because I have a lot here. If you want to continue making a point while I get this together, because it's going to take a minute, go ahead.
Okay. I'll talk about Cooler for a bit. Because I think that there's a lot of stuff that's kind of weird around Cooler's numbers. I mean, for one, most of the sheets I use give him an insane amount of support. The numbers I've used in this chat are quite... I mean, they're pretty low support-wise. I think, 26% support or something like that average? Cooler, for some reason, got given an insane amount of support in all the, in all the APT sheets and stuff that people did. I mean, I know why. It's because people just like the unit. But the units that are often supporting him at the time Althan released were quite bad in the new stages. Like SDR Final Form Cooler, I think kind of just got shit on in like the Gamma's Red Zone and by Cell Max and stuff like that. Like Cooler really did not have a good spot at the time in those stages. And it kind of made running him with those supports damn near impossible. I think there was probably a time, and even without those, even with those supports, Cooler only really was hitting harder on maybe 1 or 2 turns. I think when he gets to go in the active turn, he can hit harder on, depending on the scenario. And after the active turn, so like turn 7 plus, he can hit harder as well.
That's what I'm showing for this. I have
but what's
the average. I'm giving him the 50% support from the Easy ASTR Cooler.
Yeah, see, I don't know. That seems kind of unfair to me because I don't think STR Cooler was great in content at the time.
But they were kind of like the best friends. You ran them together.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree, but I just think that STR GUR Cooler was getting weak at the time. Like you couldn't really run him in a lot of stuff.
And I could go off on a tangent of how much I hated the Cooler team. I could yap
no,
about that all day, but that's not what we're here to talk about.
yeah. I just think that if we're talking about hardest hitters, we have to be. Yeah, Luke, can you do that, please? Actually, it's starting to annoy me. I can't lie. I think it's just kind of a little bit hard to include that in the discussion if we're talking about top damage dealers, because we've got to be realistic. Like, if you can't really run it in events, then how can we say?
But they're very like relative. Like, if you twisted my arm and it was like, say, physical ultimate Gohan is the hardest hitting unit in the game, I would yield to you very quickly because they're very close. I can concede that point.
Okay. And
I have no problem with that.
Before we move on, then, do you think that Ultimate Gohan was better than Cooler on release?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Okay. All right, then it's irrelevant anyway. Then, so we'll just move on. So I probably should have said this first. Actually, I've kind of. I'll ask you on your opinion, but I've kind of sussed up about 3 or 4 units that I think can be arguable against Alt Han at the time of his release. And I personally place him at number 2 on release. I think that you could argue. I mean, some of them I don't think you could argue, but I think that people could argue Gamma 2 and Gamma 1, either one. I don't agree with either, and I'll tell you why afterwards. But those are 2 possible units. Vegeta and Trunks, I think, is probably the biggest contender, and Cooler. I'm not adding the gods because that's just wrong, and just like it's like objectively wrong. They were not better. They were just worse in every single way. But Vegeta and Trunks, I think, is the one that is, and Orange Piccolo. Orange Piccolo was number 1. That's that's a good point. But
Off the top of my head for the time, I would have Vegeta and Trunks, Orange Piccolo as like the 2 obvious ones, and then I would also put Birdcoo over him.
Why?
For the revive. It was very helpful for the Cell Max fight, and it's very powerful on Vegeta and Trunks' team.
For the Cell Max fight, what do you mean the
event,
not the
event one?
Not the event. Is that a fair reason to put Birdcoo above Alt-Han when Alt-Han will literally like one-shot that fight?
I feel like Birdcoo's utility.
Yeah, but okay, come on, bro. Let's be fair here. Are we for real putting Birdcoo over Alt-Han?
I think they're like similar tier.
Because
Birdcoo's revive was very free, and like it let me beat the fight with the Cyberman.
I mean,
which is kind of
okay.
Funny.
Let's not.
I had them like on the same tier though. I had them like on the same tier. They're sort of interchangeable for me.
I can't see how. I wasn't going to include the Cell Max event because I feel like that's kind of unfairly skewed towards Alt-Han. But if you're,
it is because he's buffed in that fight.
Yeah, he's buffed, and like if you're saying Birdcoo's better because of that, like I don't know. That's.
But I'm saying like Cell Max fight because that's at the top of my head. But like he's also going to be better in Metal Cooler Core. The other Cell Max fight.
How?
Because he's got the revive and he's stacking defense. He's guarding. He's a defensive unit. Slot 2 unit for Vegeta and Trunks. Gives links. Does mid damage, but he's a defensive unit. He's just not going to die. And if he does die,
doesn't die.
He revives.
Superheroes doesn't die as a team.
Neither team dies.
Well, it does. I think Birdcoo's and Vegeta and Trunks' team can die in those events, but I think that Vegeta and Trunks. All right, I'll talk about Vegeta and Trunks first, and then we'll go to Birdcoo because I think Birdcoo is just like easier to argue. Vegeta and Trunks. I mean, Superheroes, you agree, is the best team in the game at the time. Vegeta and Trunks, they had their own team. They had bonded parent and child, didn't they? Are you one of these guys that thinks that you have to rate on different teams, or do you agree that it doesn't really matter about the teams? If there's one team that is strongest in the game, you don't have you can just rate on that team, or are you saying
I look at a unit on their best setup. I don't care how many teams they're on. That doesn't affect the ranking for me. We can talk about if a unit has value, then we can talk about, okay, yeah, them being on more teams is better for their value. But if we're talking about how good is this unit, it's just the best setup that matters in my eyes.
Okay, well, I agree. So Vegeta and Trunks, you think on their best setup they're performing better than Alt-Han on his best setup?
In a vacuum, no, because they're not outputting the same level of damage, and they do take some damage from super attacks in slot 1. But
Yeah.
in my opinion, there's more, like, this is a team game. The reason Vegeta and Trunks are as high as they are for me at that time is because their leader skill was by far the best in the game, and you just had access to so many units, and that allowed them to just let other units function and work, which allowed you to create a cohesive team that just worked.
I don't want to have like a like an own point, but I like you're saying that you agreed with me that if you rate on the best team for a unit,
Mhm.
how can you say that and then simultaneously say that a unit is good because it provides a variety for teams and for units? Surely it would only matter what team is best in the game.
Sure, I rate the unit's performance, sure, off of their best team. But
Why
also
does
at
it
the
matter
same
if they
time,
give
the
quality
reason that
into
the team exists is because of their leader skill. So if Vegeta and Trunks didn't have a leader skill that's as good as it is, say they ran something stupid like, I don't know, joined forces and, I don't know, a hypothetical Gallic gun category, like the team would suck and they would suck because they have no team. But because they lead bond of parent and child, because their leader skill is so good, they're that's why their team is so good.
But why does that matter? Why do you care about that?
Because if they didn't exist, the team couldn't exist.
Right, but I don't give points for that. I personally I don't give points for that. I don't see why we should give points for that.
I give
Like
points for that because
why?
say Orange Piccolo or Ultimate Gohan, say they didn't lead superheroes. Say
Yeah.
Orange Piccolo led Namekians and they weren't under each other's leader skill.
Right. Yeah.
The leader skill has value, and that
The lead is,
leads to how good the unit is.
I don't disagree the lead has value, but my point is that the lead is not the issue here. The issue is that you're rating them higher because they're giving more units access to a team, but you're also
I'm
saying
rating them
that you're
higher
only
because they're able to make this great team actually possible because
right,
of their leader skill.
but you're only rating on the best version of that team.
Yes.
You see how that's a little bit like it doesn't work. It's like if you're rating on the best version of the team, why does it matter if they give more units access to a lead skill?
It matters because they're the reason that team even exists.
I don't know. I can't follow that logic. I'm sorry. I don't get that. I'm not trying to be confrontational. I just don't. I can't see how that works. Like that seems.
I just don't
like,
really know how else to explain it. I don't know.
Look, we'll move on. I personally don't agree. I think that I don't give value. I'm not giving
Well,
value.
that's part of my reasoning for why I liked Vegito Blue as much as I did, because their leader skill was maybe the best in Dokkan history. They pretty much led the game, and that allowed you to run any combination of units, which allowed you to build a super powerful team.
Do you not think this is a for fun argument though? Because if you're rating on the best version of the team, the only way I can see this working is like a line of logic is if it's for a fun perspective. Like they have a lot of units on their leader skill, but you're only if you're talking about it in like a discussion sense, you're only looking at the best version of the team.
Here's like a kind of a point here. Let's say the Blues did not lead Superclass, and you just had their main leader skills. Okay, the team is still fine, but you lose access to the best unit in the best support unit in the game, LR Bulma. You add on the Superclass leader skill, and all of a sudden, LR Bulma gets added to their team. Because of their leader skill, you can run LR Bulma with other units that you otherwise would not be able to run with her. And so that's part of their value. Their leader skill allows you to run LR Bulma with other units you otherwise wouldn't be able to.
No, look, RHOADY, I'm not disagreeing that their lead is good.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that if you're agreeing that you're only rating on the best version of the team,
Mhm.
how does this provide value to the unit? It doesn't matter if they are giving the lead to more units because you're only looking at the best version of the team.
And the best version of the team only exists because their leader skill is as good as it is.
And that's
That's
no,
what I'm saying.
I'm not disagreeing with that point. What I'm disagreeing is the fact that them giving more units a home on the lead, giving more units of variety for a team, doesn't matter because you're only looking at the best version of the team. So they might as well only lead 7 units. Do you get what I'm saying?
Sure. But it's about what 7 units they're leading.
And no, I agree with that bit. Like that's fine. It's just
Like AGL Ginyu, his leader skill isn't going to be as good because he's leading a much smaller subsection of units. Than
no, I agree. I
Yeah.
agree with that. That's not what I'm arguing against. I'm just saying that you're giving like a point here for the width of their leader skill as opposed to the actual strength of their leader skill. I'm not saying that you're not also rating on strength, but I'm saying that the sheer fact that they have that many units on their leader skill, in my opinion, does not provide more value. The actual thing that provides value is the best form of that team.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
And
Do you
because
agree
of
with
their
that?
leader skill, they can run the best units in the game.
Yes, and I agree with
Yeah.
that bit. That's not what I'm.
Okay.
That's not what I'm disagreeing with. I'm just saying that. So say, I don't know. There's 2 units, and they both have great leads.
Mhm.
The unit with say it's a Vegeta and a Goku, and the Vegeta has the functionally better team on the best form, but his lead only has 20 units.
Mhm.
The Goku has 200 units, but a functionally worse form of that team. Are you giving value to the Goku simply
No,
because he can
Vegeta takes it.
Yeah, because it's a better version of the team. That's what I'm saying. But
Yes.
I'm not saying I don't think that it's what you're saying is wrong for like for fun sense. I'm just saying that in terms of like, this debate, I just want to make sure we we're fair here.
My sort of TLDR for why I have Vegito up with his leader skill is because he allows LR Bulma to be run with the top tier units. You otherwise wouldn't be able to run with her.
And I agree with
And
that. But just to be
okay.
clear, it's because it's only because of these set units on the team. I'm not saying that it
Yes,
doesn't
it's
help that
with
you can
these
run other
set
units.
units.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So it's just those 7 units. That's
Like they could
value of the debate.
specifically be leading these units, and because Bulma is under that umbrella, that gives the value for me.
Okay. Yeah. So let's move on. Let's not
Okay.
like get a stickler here. But so I suppose where were we? We were talking about teams. I think the next point probably. So we're talking about Vegeta and Trunks, weren't we? You say in
We
a
were, yeah.
vacuum that Ultron performs better than Vegeta and Trunks, which I
In a
agree
vacuum,
with.
Gohan's going to be doing more damage. He's taking supers better. Yeah.
But if we're looking at a one set team, why would in a vacuum not automatically make it better?
The cohesion. I feel like Vegeta and Trunks just had better synergy with the team than Ultimate Gohan had. Because Ultimate Gohan, you are having to sacrifice some key for other units. Granted, it's a team of mostly TURs. Key is not going to be a big problem, so you're really only sacrificing key for Orange Piccolo. But you're still having to work around that. And Gohan doesn't always have the key right out the gate. And you pretty much, if you want to see him at max power, you have to use his active skill on his second appearance and you have to keep him on rotation. So there isn't a ton of freedom with seeing that all out turn. And then after that, he falls off.
I don't know. This is a little bit hard for me because I think like I agree with some of your points. I do agree with some of your points, but with the content released at the time, do you think it mattered that you would prefer to active on the second appearance?
Most of the time, you can active on the second appearance and you'll be fine. The only places where this isn't ideal would be like against a Metal Cooler Core. Say Ultimate Gohan is turn 1. The first turn you can get to Metal Cooler Core is turn 4. So you're kind of screwed out of the max turn there.
Okay, I can agree with that. I think that's a valid point. I think you can still save the active.
You can absolutely still save the active. It's just going to hit a bit weaker, and the turn isn't going to be as impressive.
I agree with that. I would still say, in terms of the damage it does, it's still like in comparison to other units at the time, it was
Oh
probably
yeah,
below
it's still
Cooling,
up there. It's
but
still up there.
it's still like above, like the LR gods and stuff like that. It's still at that level. So
Mhm.
it's still, I would still say, I agree with your point, but I don't think it necessarily makes a massive difference to the argument against Ohan. I do think
Mhm.
that rotations were a big thing. I think that's a valid point against Ohan. But I think for the content at the time, the one stage I would say it probably did matter. Like, you did have to say the active was probably Gamma's Red Zone.
Mhm.
Apart from that, obviously for Cellmax is a one phase event.
Yeah, you can just pop it whenever you want.
The Cellmax gimmick one was, what was it? It was three. Was it 3 phases? I can't even remember. I think it was 3 phases.
The Cellmax event? Yeah, it's 3
Yeah,
phases.
but they all just. I mean, that basically doesn't matter. You as
No,
soon
they
as you got to
melted.
the last stage, you won with Orange Piccolo
Yeah.
and Gohan, because it was just like you
Mhm.
use the giant and then you use the active, they're dead.
Yeah, no, that event became so free once they added the boosts.
I think so. For Vegeta, I mean, do you think that Ohan on this team performed better than Vegeta and Trunks did on their team for the current stages? And
If we're just talking performance, yes.
right, I'm struggling to see the difference here between performance and whatever other value you're adding in here. To be honest, I don't really get where the extra value for Vegeta and Trunks is coming from. Why is performance
Because
not the only thing that matters, or the main thing that matters?
because Vegeta and Trunks allowed the team to work. One of the points I brought up earlier with like how I look at units is this unit providing something the team lacks? Ultimate Gohan, like, we know what his role is. He is a slot 2 damage dealing unit. I don't think you can disagree with that, right?
No, I agree with that. Yeah, that is what.
Okay. Vegeta and Trunks are a slot 1 unit that you just put there and they just eat attacks. That is their role, and it allows other units to work as slot 2 attacking units. 2022, we didn't get a ton of slot 1 unit. So Vegeta and Trunks being able to fill that role is valuable and has him up there. And on top of like the thing I mentioned earlier, the only reason you could run the team that you're running with them is because they exist.
Look, I think we are circling back to this point again,
I
where
agree.
we have a
Yeah.
disagreement. I think we both get it. Like, we have a disagreement on fundamentals here. I don't care about other teams. I care about the best team, and that's it.
Right.
Like, none of this has value to me. Like, if that has value to you, then that's just something we disagree on, and that's it. If you want to, argue Vegeta and Trunks above, because that's, I honestly don't think it matters in the long run, because I don't even. I mean, we'll get to it when we get to VB, but I think that, for time's sake, we can agree to disagree. I think that, would you say? I mean, for Birdcue, there's no way you're arguing team though. Like, why is he better?
Oh yeah, his leader skill. Who cares about that? He could lead a team of Cybermen for all I care. Yeah, his leader skill carries no value because powerful combat wasn't great. But Birdcue, what he was he was a defensive stacker. You can safely put him in slot 2 and 3, and he is there to get you out of tricky situations. Units, in my eyes, that are super valuable are units that can help you recover from situations that the boss puts you in that you are not ready for by being ready for those situations. So,
Sorry,
say you eat
what
a
team are you
super with a
running?
unit you really
Yeah.
did not want to. Birdcue is there and say, "Shall I help? Shall I save you, Mahito?" And he just revives. He
What
is
team are you running
there when
Birdcue?
things go wrong.
What team are you running Birdcue on?
Vegeta and Trunks' team.
Do you not think that he loses value because Vegeta and Trunks are the better slot one?
No, because Birdcue's value, in my eyes, is his revive.
I don't know. That feels like a bit of a contradiction, bro. I can't lie. I don't mean to be confrontational again, but I did we not say that earlier that slot ones? I think I remember you saying it. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think we said earlier that slot ones lose value if there's other slot ones on the team that are better. You'd agree with that, yeah?
For me, it's more Technically, yes. It's more like slot ones gain value if they're on a team with a massive slot one deficit. But if a slot one is outside of slot one, it comes to, okay, what else is this unit doing? And for me, that is Birdcoo's Revive.
Yeah. Okay, I think we'll move on from this.
Okay.
What
I'm loving looking at the general chat. It's so funny.
Yeah. I'm trying not to look at it, to be honest. Look,
This is the racket.
yeah.
I'm loving this.
Are there any other units you'd argue over Althan at the time? And then we'll move on.
Gamma 1.
Killed it. Gamma 1. Why?
Gamma 1. Amazing
Just for
slot
defense,
1.
or...
Just for his defense. Like, he is...
Where is he slot
You
running,
can
sorry?
still kind of get away with running him today.
What team are you running him on at the time, though?
On Superheroes at the time.
Why would you... Yeah, but Orange Piccolo's on that team. Why do you need Gamma 1 for slot 1 on that team?
Works well with Gamma 2. Like, you can run the Gamma 1, Gamma 2 rotation. It's a very powerful rotation.
Yeah, but it's worse than the other rotations on the team. I don't see why you'd run it.
I know I haven't run that exact setup in a very long time. So Gamma 1, I just remember him being better, but like it's been over 2 years at this point.
Gamma 2's damage is lower than most of the units we're talking about at the moment. Like Gamma 2,
yeah, it is a little bit lower.
He was a decent damage dealer, but he was lower than pretty much Gohan, Cooler, like gods. Any of these units, he was lower than them.
Gamma 1, I feel like he's better defensively than Orange Piccolo once Orange Piccolo loses his guard.
One more thing then before we move on from Gohan, and we'll go
for it.
Actually, I probably should have said this. You agree that the Superheroes team was effectively infallible when it came to any event at the time because of Orange Piccolo's Giant.
Mm-hmm.
So you had turn 1, turn 3, they had intro and guard. Turn 5, you could use a Giant. And then typically, I mean, you can see it in the evidence channel. That run I did ended turn 6 on Cellmax, who was like one of the tankiest bosses at the time.
Yeah, no. Superheroes was like the best team in the game.
Yeah, it would be over by that point. So one thing I just want to, and I don't know if you disagree with this or not, I just want to say it for the audience as well if they're watching. Ultimate Gohan was effectively invincible at the time. There was no supers that could kill him during his intro was up.
He was
after that, you had Orange Piccolo, and I was using this argument for years, and I think people, the thing people kind of disagreed with was attributing that Orange Piccolo's Giant towards Ultimate Gohan.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that matters. I think that people instantly dropped that as soon as it didn't affect Gohan. Like people were using active skills and shit for other units. They did not care.
I've always been of the mind that if a unit's best friend has access to utility that is very free next to that friend, then they in turn have access to that utility.
I agree, and I think that most people would agree now, and for some reason didn't at the time. And maybe it's just because it was the first type of synergy we had. But
like Tech Vegito or Tech Super Vegito, he has access to AGL Super Gogeta support. That makes him even better. Like, we're not going to ignore AGL Super Gogeta's 54% attack support next to Vegito. Like, come on.
All right, so let's move on. I mean, where after talking a bit, you'd have him. You'd have Vegeta and Trunks above.
Vegeta and Trunks above him. Gamma 1, Birdcoo maybe. Like, that's where.
I'm struggling with Birdcoo and Gamma 1. So you'd say like 4 to 5-ish. I'm struggling with Gamma 1. Birdcoo.
That sounds fair.
We can come back to it if we need to at the end, but let's go to Vegeta. So do you want to lay your points out for Vegeta Blue?
Sure. I've kind of gone into it already about the leader skill, but like we've come to like agree to disagree there. Vegito Blue in base, I know there's a lot of revisionist history around them, but they were one of the very few units you could put in slot 1 against Fusion Zamasu, and they're just gonna go, no, thank you, give me more. Like, even if they didn't dodge a super attack, they're not taking a ton of damage. And even if they do take the super attack, fusion time. Like, So that's part of their value is they're able to go slot 1 without any difficulty in an era without too many slot 1s. People love to complain about 2023, and rightfully so, because we just got so many units that are purely slot 2 in an era with an AoE boss. So there's that. They're able to go slot 1 in an era of slot 2s. And that is part of their value, like I mentioned earlier. And then you have the actual fuse state, which I have a controversial take about the fuse state, which I know a lot of people disagree. And part of my problem with Vegito Blue, like if I was going to criticize the unit, is that the fuse state wasn't made powerful enough for me, in my opinion. But the fuse state does still have value. It has the 50% defensive support when using the Ultra Super Attack, which is very useful against bosses like STR Mega and Into Mega, because that extra 50% defense support, that's going to allow units to take Omega's AoEs a lot better. So that's something that they were doing for the team, was allowing you to actually live. And they had the 100% dodge turn, which of course you can't say 100% dodge isn't powerful. It was during an era with no dodge canceling, so they were able to just do that and run free.
So I missed a bit about the so just to go back about the active condition, because I think that's going to be a stickler for me. So sorry, what was your comment on the active condition?
I didn't really have a comment on the active condition. For me, the active skill condition has always been free, at least for the fusion. Now, if we want to talk about like post fusion, the active there where you have to be below 50% HP, that's where I'm just like, okay, that's getting to a point where I'm not a fan. But just below the 70% HP, that's not a massive deal, because what you can do with that, hypothetically speaking, is say you have the rotation of AGL Blues and Physical God Goku. Put Physical God Goku in slot 1, put AGL Blues in slot 2. Say, like, you know you're going to be fine for the rest of the rotation. You have slot 3 locked down. The next rotation is good. The Blues, if they can take a little bit from the AoE in slot 2, they can take a super attack in slot 2, and you're below the HP threshold nice and easily with that. And so you're ready to fuse. Same with against Tech Omega. If they eat a super attack in any of the slots, congratulations, you're ready to fuse. And there's no risk of them dying, because during those first turns against Tech Omega, he's dodge canceling, so you don't have to worry about them dodging an attack that you don't want them to dodge. And they're defensively viable enough to where they can tank that attack. Because if I recall correctly, they have like 350% defense with their intro in slot 1, which was a lot at the time. With guard, they weren't taking much damage at all, but enough to where it's non-lethal, controllable damage for the fusion.
See, it's interesting because you have a couple units there. I mean, a big thing for me on that one is you've got units that are going to take a lot from the super if they get supered, like the blue duo, not the blue duo, the 50th fusions. If they get supered by Tech Omega, they're going to take quite a lot.
They did. Was doing Omega runs this morning, and in one of my runs, I did have STR Gogeta. He ate a super attack from Tech Omega, and he took 350k.
Okay.
Which, that's a sizable amount, but that's only a little under half HP of the HP pool, which you can recover from. And also, you're ready to fuse with that. They're only in base for 1 turn. If they eat a super attack, you're taking less than half HP. That is completely manageable.
How do you control when the 50 years transform?
Mostly that's based off of starting rotations. Like, okay, when do I think I'm going to get to STR Omega? Because usually you want them to transform during the first turn of STR Omega, but sometimes that doesn't always work out. They can, but so long as if they transform against Tech Omega, you want Tech Omega to have enough HP to actually survive their first turn onslaught. That way you're not stuck against STR Omega without their buildup and without their dodge. And you just control that by gauging how your rotations are. It's kind of hard to like exactly describe. Like, it's trying to describe muscle memory of a certain action. It's not really something that you articulate. It's just something you get a feel for.
I don't know. That's hard for me to get behind, to be honest. I feel like
Yeah,
it's
it's
very
not a great
RNG.
argument. I can attest. I can agree with that, but it's also it comes to knowing how to play the game, I suppose.
I think that there's a lot of luck involved in that process, and I found and that's not even using this team. That's just using a different team in general. But I found when I was using the fifth years in that stage, a lot of the time they either transformed in the first phase because I couldn't do enough damage because I wasn't bringing like int units and stuff like you've got on that team. There's no int units, so you're going to struggle getting through that phase.
And I purposely don't bring in units. Like that's one of my things against in Super Saiyan 4 Goku was that he went through the first phase too quickly, and so you ended up against STR Omega without any build up. But with that team, I'm able to pretty easily and consistently have the blues transforming against STR Omega, and the runs just go smoothly from my experience using that team.
I don't know. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, bro. I just don't think that's a great team for Omega. I think it works, but I think there's a lot of RNG that goes into that. You'd agree there were better teams at the time, like in Forku, for example.
Yes, specifically for Omega, the best team is the Z Duo team with STR GT Duo lead.
So in that period, what makes you say the Blue Duo were the best then, or better than those units?
I would not say Vegito Blue was the best unit in the game at the time of their release. I don't think they ever were. Like, I think.
Hold on. I think we found a tier list earlier, bro. I think we found
No. I used to have them at 1, but like thinking back, retrospective analysis, like they were not 1. Orange Piccolo was. Like, I can acknowledge that my logic can be fallible, like when it comes to rankings. Like, there's plenty of times where I go back on rankings and I'm like, no, what the heck was I thinking? I was wrong there. Like when we got Fizz, like everyone loves to bring this up. When LR Janemba's Easy A details got brought up, I put LR Janemba at 34. I was being completely stupid when I did that. I don't know what I was thinking. I was clearly wrong. He's a lot higher than 34 on release. Like, I can look back at old tier lists and I could say, no, I was wrong there. I don't mind saying that I was wrong in the past.
So if you think you're wrong, why don't we go through? So I've posted the old tier list in that chat.
Yeah.
Why don't we go through the units that are on there and you tell me which ones you think retrospectively are better or were worse? So like for
I
Bulma,
would have Orange Piccolo and Bulma above them.
Just Orange Piccolo and Bulma. Why not Future Gohan?
Future Gohan, part of it is because Vegito Blue has like the leader skill. So they have the leader skill over Future Gohan. They're doing sort of comparable damage on like post fusion versus Gohan's built up. Gohan, the thing about him is a lot of his value is his domain expansion. But against Fusion Zamasu, you are not seeing that a lot of the time because you're finishing up Fusion Zamasu pretty quickly. And Future Gohan has a similar weakness to Vegito Blue, where it's turn 5, start a turn. He has that bad condition for his domain expansion, similar to the other Worldwide Celebration units, because, 2023, year of weird designs. But that's a lot of where Future Gohan's value came for me, was from his domain expansion. And he wasn't a slot 1 unit. He was a slot 2 and 3 unit, which, like I've said before, is something that 2023 had in spades.
See, I'm looking at this list. So, sorry, I'm just kind of looking. I'm thinking there seems to be a decent chunk of slot 1 units here. For me, honest, I think you've got you got Kai Goku. I think was able to slot 1 in Omega. Budo, as soon as they stand by, was just a de facto slot 1 in both events. You've got units like World Tournament Goku, who was a slot 1. I mean, yeah, he was just a slot 1. You can't really say he was a different slot. Orange Piccolo, obviously, who was probably the best slot 1 in the game. I feel like we've got a decent chunk of slot 1s in this picture. Like that's why I'm kind of getting a little bit confused. A little. Like, can you explain that? Like, what's making them so special in this?
Well, part of it, like I said a few times, but like we disagree there, is they allow the team to work. Like they allow Bulma to be on the team, but we've talked about that ad nauseum. Okay, let's look at some of the slot 1 units. Budoku, team isn't the greatest. He doesn't have great partners, and so that's part of what had him a bit lower for me. He can easily get caught after his first turn. He has the 50%, or just the first turn? But he has a 50% chance to guard. He can easily get caught like that. He's not going to be a slot 1 once his guard initially runs out. And his revive, let's be honest, you're never getting it. So that value's pretty much gone for him at being a slot 1 reliable unit. Kai Goku.
Sorry, hold
Huh?
on. Before we move on, was there a unit? I can't remember what it was. What unit did you used to use to revive him? Was it
GT Duo.
GT Duo? That's it. Or
Yeah.
Gohan and Piccolo was one people used as well. Do you not think that factors in a little bit? Because wasn't that the whole strategy of World Tournament Goku? And I'm sure. I mean, if Vector's here, feel free to speak up, Vector. I'll unmute you if you want. But I feel like that was the whole strategy of Does that not kind of factor in here?
The problem with doing GT Duo is if you're running the Budokai Goku team, you're not getting the GT Duo revive until turn 3 or 4 at the earliest if you fall below the HP threshold, and maybe even turn 5. At that point, the fight's over against Fujin Zamasu.
What about Gohan and Piccolo? They were the
Gohan and Piccolo.
Yeah.
Gonna be honest, I don't remember their revive condition exactly, but also we're talking like at the end of Worldwide Celebration. They aren't out.
Did they come out after? I actually can't remember when they came out.
They were the November Part 1 release.
Okay, yeah, that's my bad. Sorry, I forgot about that.
No worries.
Okay, so World Tournament Goku, he's
he's fine turn 1, but he loses his value as a slot 1 unit as soon as his guard goes away, and then he becomes guard or die.
Yeah. 4Q
Kai
as well.
Goku, he's not really going slot 1 against Fujin Zamasu. He hits too hard right out the gate, and he needs to build up. He's better against Omega, but he's never really been an amazing slot 1 unit. He's an emergency slot 1 unit, but he isn't like a dedicated, I'm going to put Kai Goku in slot 1 and I'm going to feel completely safe. Sure, he has a counter against Fujin Zamasu's super attack, but
he has
if you don't counter that...
I swear to God, he has comparable defense to Trunks. No?
I don't fully recall if he has comparable defense.
I mean, I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure. I don't know if someone wants to do it on the fly, we can put it in chat, but I'm pretty sure once both were fully built up that they were pretty close.
Sure, but this is an era where bosses are also hitting a lot harder than when Vegeta and Trunks were out. And this is like right out the gate.
For Omega, this is for Fusion Smash. If you want to argue this, I think that's fair. But let's focus on Omega just for the second because I want to just hammer the point home. So like for Omega, I don't know. Maybe someone can put the stats in chat. But
for Omega, Kai Goku, sure, he can go slot 1 for the start, but his guard does eventually run out against Omega if you're running him on the team, and then he loses the ability to go slot 1. Like, you are not putting him slot 1 against Int Omega once his guard runs out.
Yeah, I feel like you can kind of play around that team building wise though, because that is quite late into the fight.
And he is on the team when I am running the GT Duo team against Omega. He's there to be a safe slot 2/3 unit. So like he is good. But he is not what I would call a dedicated slot 1 unit that allows the team to be synergized and working.
I would have to disagree, but we can move on from it because I don't want this to last too much longer. 4Q for Omega, I feel like he's just kind of better.
Yeah, he's a unit that exists.
You'd agree he's better for Omega. I don't agree with Fusion Zamasu, but for Omega, he was just a better unit. Like he was basically built for that fight.
4Q against Omega. I was never his fan.
He was built for that fight. He was literally built for that fight.
Yeah, if only the fight was built for him. So
What? There's no way
for
you're
Q,
saying
he
BB's better.
damages Tech Omega a bit too much. And so you usually end up taking down the first phase very quickly. And so you end up against STR Omega without him being able to use his standby. And if he's in slot 1, he can get completely annihilated by a super attack. If he's in slot 2, he takes damage from normals. And so
I don't know
basically,
if
you're
I
stuck
agree
in the
with that.
base form, unable to transform because you blitz through the first phase way too quickly. And
I
he
don't.
also screws
Yeah.
up the rest of the team by not allowing them to build up. Tech Omega is the phase that doesn't hit hard, that allows you to build up the units that you want to build up. And Int Forku goes, no, I don't think I will, and just annihilates Tech Omega in one turn. And so now you're left against STR Omega, an AoE boss with nearly, like, what was it, 600k AoEs, and none of your units have any buildup. Congratulations, you've shot yourself in the foot. Enjoy this KO screen, or sorry, this game over screen. That's
I
what
think
I'm thinking with
no.
4Q. I'm not a fan of him.
I think that that's a little bit unfair. I think that most of the time he had to stand by up for that. I mean, how many attacks does Tech Omega do? He does quite a lot. I feel like I don't know, that can be something that people decide afterwards, but I think that that's a kind of hard one. I feel like he was just kind of better for Omega. But I mean, like VB, this seems like just an uber specific team that you're like going for here. I don't know if that's really fair because I feel like there were a lot of teams that were working better in the fight, like Boo Duo, for
Like,
example.
there are other teams that worked better, like the GT Duo team. Best team in the game for the Omega fight because you just delete the final phase.
Yeah. So, but you're saying this, so there's so many units in there that are doing so much more for the team in that fight. So how can you say VB was like top 3, top 4?
Because Vegito Blue allowed. So part of his value was that he was a slot 1 unit that allowed the other slot 2 units to build up, say the Z Duo, GT Duo, the 5th anniversary fusions, future Gohan, Godku. He allowed all them to just get their build up that they wanted while sitting there in slot 1 and eating every single attack that came their way. You were taking down Tech Omega by the time their guard ran out. Against STR Omega, you still had their natural guard if you really needed it, and you could probably fuse at the time as well. And they could continue to sit there in slot 1, support the rotation post-fusion with the 50% defensive support, and they just allowed the team to work. They are the foundation of the team. Part of why I had them as high as they were is because they're a foundation unit, not a structure unit. Like,
So,
the only reason that team exists and can function as well as it does is because they are laying the groundwork for the team.
but you agree that it's not one of the best teams to fight. It may be one of the best teams, but it's not the best team for the fight. So I don't understand how this is.
It's one of the better teams for the fight because, like, it's a team that you're not really going to lose with.
Okay. I mean, it's hard to kind of debate against this. I understand. I agree with some of your points, but it's hard to kind of argue with this because I kind of feel like some of these points are a little bit like super subjective. Like I don't know.
That is the thing. It's hard to have objective when it comes to a team building game full of RNG. Like, you're not going to have analysis of every single possible scenario that exists. A lot of it comes down to how well you're able to manage the team and just the synergy of it and how well it can deal with unexpected situations.
But these things are factored into that. You know, you're looking at like when you rate these teams, you're looking at the best version.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're looking at the average RNG. So, you know, even for boss attacks, you can just work out the average amount of attacks per slot. You know, you can work out the chances for each slot to have the super attack, which, you know, that's
but
all.
For me, when it comes to best teams, it's not looking at, okay, who's the best team for the average turn. It's who's the best team that can deal with the most scenarios. So what is the team that can do things, like, that can continue on when things go wrong.
Those
Because
two are analogous, though. Already, they're like if a team is the best on average in a single turn, they will be able to deal with the most in that fight. That's like, how are those two not the same thing? So, like superheroes, for example, they were the
Mhm.
best team basically every single turn because they could deal with everything. If a team isn't the best on average on a single turn, or for most turns for that matter, how are they? You know, it's the same thing. How is that not the exact same thing?
well, for the Vegito team, like you're able to deal with all these average turns, like too. Like everyone on the team is able to tank the super attack, but on the other side, you also have the recoverability and the support. And the only reason that the team can deal with all that is because they're giving the support and they're laying that foundation. Superheroes, sure, they were able to deal with everything too. Gamma 1 might get sniped by a super attack because he wasn't the greatest defensively if you didn't have good RNG. But yeah, if you
Okay,
get what I'm saying.
so let's try and move on. We'll just make a final point about this. So looking at your tier list, I think that just from this discussion, to me, it sounds like you'd say. So you said Bulma and Orange Piccolo were better.
Mhm.
Merge Zamasu, I think probably was better, but I think you disagree.
I like when we got Fusion Zamasu's detail, I was like, okay, this unit is better in a vacuum, but Vegito has the better synergy.
Okay. Fifth years, do you not think they're better?
I don't. They are vulnerable to AoEs, which
I
is
agree.
a very big notion in the Fusion Zamasu fight.
Okay. GT Duo?
GT Duo, I would not, because again, they're vulnerable to AoEs. They're not a slot 1 unit, and they just aren't the best for the Fusion Zamasu fight because they need to build up and they can take damage from the AoE.
Hold on, just to clarify, we've got to split the Omega and the Fusion Zamasu fight up. We can't talk about both at the same time. So this is just for the Omega fight at the moment.
Okay.
So
For the
Bulma
Omega
on-
fight, I would probably have the GT Duo.
Okay. So the GT Duo, Boo Duo, I think you probably agree as well. Any others?
Well, if we're just talking about the Omega fight, I would have the Z Duo at 1.
Z Duo at 1, Bulma and
For
Orange
the
Piccolo
Omega
above,
fight specifically,
GT Duo.
2 or 3. And then Bulma right behind.
So where is Vegito going in this list?
If we're just talking Omega,
Yeah.
maybe bottom of top 5, second half of top 10.
So just to clarify, does that not kind of automatically mean you agree? Because you had Alt-Han around 5-ish, didn't you?
But
When
here's
we
the
were talking.
thing. Doesn't the exact placement on a list isn't the same thing as like how good the unit is. So let's look at what's a good example. Okay, here's one. The 7th anniversary LRs unreleased versus STR Beast. Who's the better unit?
STR Beast.
Right, but they're both 1 at the time. So
What do you mean both?
there's an exact counter to your argument. You're saying because Ultimate Gohan was higher on a tier list at his time than Vegito Blue might have been, that makes him better when that's not obviously not the case. STR Beast was at 1, the 7th anniversary LRs were at 1. Beast is clearly the better unit despite them both being 1.
Well, I don't really agree with that kind of like breakdown of it. To be honest, I feel like they're both 1. It doesn't really matter. You know, obviously, in terms of how they beat events, sure they may differ, but that doesn't really matter. I mean, maybe we've come into this and we've kind of got a disagreement or like a misunderstanding of what we were talking about. But this is for rankings. Like when we talk about how good the units are, it's just in rankings. Like I agree that there's it's not as nuanced as that. Like in reality, there's differences in how strong they actually are. The tier list is not everything. But if we just to like clarify here, if we're talking about specifically rankings, you think Alt-Han in terms of rankings was higher than VB on release?
Like if we're talking VB against Omega, Ultimate Gohan was at a smaller number than Vegito Blue was.
Okay. All right, let's leave it at that for Omega. Let's quickly do Merge Zamasu and then we'll call it. So for Merge Zamasu, what is your list looking like for Vegeta?
Orange Piccolo 1, Vegito Blue 2, Fusion Zamasu 3,
Wait, hold on, sorry. So Orange Piccolo 1,
VB2,
VB
Fusion Zamasu 3.
Really?
Yes, because they're able to just, like I said before, they're able to just sit in slot 1, able to tank everything Fusion Zamasu is throwing out, and they were one of the best defensive units on release.
I don't know. Is that true? I think they were very good for Merge.
No,
Zamasu.
they were absolutely one of the best defensive units in the game on release.
I think Orange Piccolo was probably better. I mean, you said Orange Piccolo was
not
better.
until he built up. Orange Piccolo, without his build-up, is taking big damage against Fusion Zamasu.
Big damage. That is a lie. That is not big damage.
He's taking damage.
He's taking a bit of damage. He's taking like 200.
He's taking a bit of damage. Yes,
which I don't class as big
that's,
damage. Like that's like
from the AOE.
That's
he's taking more damage.
Like from the AOE. What?
I was doing runs. Orange Piccolo. I saw him take like 100k from the AOE in slot 2/3 without any build-up. Like he takes damage. He's not a slot 1 unit right at the start because if he gets sniped by a super attack, he's dead. He needs to build up first.
I think he has to build up a bit. That does not sound true to me. If he gets sniped first attack, I don't even think he dies.
He absolutely does.
Nah, there's no way that's true. That's not true. Maybe we go fact check this afterwards, but there is absolutely no way he dies from a super attack from Merge Zamasu like instantly. He might. I might be wrong. I will happily admit I'm wrong on that, but I never remember that happening.
And the Blues, they take like 200k from a super attack right out the gate if they get hit by one.
But that doesn't make sense. They're at like 400k defense, 420k defense ish. He's like, what is he, like 200 ish? With 20% damage reduction too. How is he dying, but they're not?
They have higher defense.
Nah, RHOADY, I think you're capping on this one, bro. I'm calling fact or cap on that. That is definitely a cap. Like that, there's no way that's true. We'll move on, but I think that's fact.
If you wanted to put Tech Orange Piccolo like at 2, maybe, but I don't know.
I mean, we'll move on. We'll go to the next one. So it was Orange Piccolo, VB, Merge Zamasu.
I don't think it really matters from there because we're just talking about like where VB is, right?
Yeah, but I kind of want to get. I mean, I just want to scope out what units you're putting VB above just at the time. Honestly, my memory's kind of a little bit hazy. I can't lie. Like I'm trying to think of what units. Like I remember how they performed, but I can't remember what. Like I don't know what units you'd have. Like honestly, I'm being real. I don't even remember what I had Vegeta at the time, but it probably was like 5 or 6. So I'm just trying to think of who I would have above him. So
I'm going to pull up my tier list from end of 2023.
Do you not have Bulma above? Do you think Bulma's above or not?
I think Bulma can have an argument. The problem with Bulma above the AGL Blues against Fusion Zamasu is just she's only being run on their team.
Okay.
So
what about
that just leads to like their value as the leader. Like the only reason you can run Bulma against Fusion Zamasu is because the Blues exist.
Okay. What about Budo?
Against Fusion Zamasu, no. They lose a bit of value there for me.
Okay. Really?
They have their natural guard, but they can still take a lot of damage. They're not going slot 1. They were fine for the Power Beyond Super Saiyan mission, but that's really where their contribution for the Fusion Zamasu fight started and ended for me.
Do you not think a big factor with the Fusion Zamasu fight is killing the first phase as soon as possible? Because that is the phase that usually screws up the most units.
For me, I'm fine just lingering on that phase because what always screws up, in my experience, my dislike for the Fusion Zamasu fight was it was purely an opening rotation simulator. if we're talking like we have rotations set, the Fusion Zamasu fight becomes a cakewalk. It doesn't matter how long you spend on that first phase, you're just going to be walking through it. What really screws you over is when you start a turn and you don't have a unit who can sit in slot 1 and eat a super attack, and then have the rest rotation eat AoEs. That's the big issue that you would have with the Fusion Zamasu fight. But if you're able to just like assume right out the gate, you can throw blue duos in slot 1 against Fusion Zamasu, easy fight.
I don't know. Again, this is really coming down to the team thing with me. Like, I don't give a shit about this like team variance stuff, if I'm being honest.
And that's
like,
part of where like my big value for VB comes from, is the fact that they let you run the team.
I don't think that team was the best at the time, though. I think Superheroes was the best at the time.
During Fusion Zamasu, no.
How? I think Superheroes was easily better than VB's team during Fusion Zamasu.
Well, what's your complete superheroes team against Fusion Zamasu? I saw someone say, "What's the debate even about anymore?"
Yeah, I mean, look, we're trailing off a little bit. We'll wrap it up.
It is going off in tangents.
Look, I my ideal team off the top of my head, probably quite similar to what I've got there. I'd probably replace Gamma 2 with Physical 17. Who was even out for Superheroes at the time? It was, you can even run Earthbred Fighters. But I think Earthbred Fighters was a decent team for that time. You could actually run VB on Superheroes as well. That's another unit you could run slot 2 or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm not prepared. Ignore that I said that. I'm not prepared to bring up a team at the time. But I think Superheroes in general, maybe this can be like a retrovist point. People in the comments of whatever in general and stuff like that, or whatever video it goes on, can talk about. But I think Superheroes is probably arguably better at the time. And if we're saying that there's people in I'm not going to bring up people talking too much, but there's people saying Superheroes was better in the VC chat at the moment. Someone said Ohan, OP, Gamma 1, future Gohan. No, I'm not listening to that guy. No, you're wrong, bro.
I think we can all agree, though, that Tech Ultimate Gohan was the best unit in the game.
That's true.
Yeah.
Let's end it. I think that look, I've enjoyed this. I think that if we're going to conclude, based purely on rankings, this is what I was coming in to discuss. Based purely on rankings, you agree during VB's initial release, Alt-Han had the smaller number. He was, number 2 to 4, whatever we said.
Yes, Ultimate Gohan on release would have been rated higher on a 1 out of 10 scale than, or sorry, not like a 1 out of 10 scale, but like in a top 10 than Vegito Blue.
Okay. I think that
I can agree with that.
When it comes to the Merge Match stuff, I see us getting nowhere, because I don't think either of us are going to agree on that stuff. Maybe that's something we can talk about at a later date. But I just want to say thank you for coming. Whatever the outcome may be in the eye of the public for this one, please no one send hate to RHOADY or me, please. I think that I had a lot of fun, even if I saw some people saying it was boring. It's going to be a little bit boring, bro. We're discussing.
Yeah, we're just talking
high level. It was never supposed to be, we're not dancing monkeys or anything like that. Like, we're discussing the game. We're trying to have a good discussion. Maybe future ones will be more.
We're not on Twitter sending 140 character messages at each other trying to get an own so that the other person get retweeted over and over again. Exactly. Be like, oh.
I will say I massively prefer this to Twitter. I think Twitter is dog shit, and I think it's because people who know nothing talk a lot of shit. That's what I'm going to say.
And I've talked with some people in VC, and they say, like, I come off over text a lot harsher than I do over VC. And I think that's because I suck at texting.
Nah, people who said that to me, people always said I came across condescending. I definitely was at some points being condescending, but a lot of the time I wasn't. And I think like I think
Alan,
Twitter is
Alan. At some points, bud. Come on.
look, maybe a good 50% of the time I might be, but Twitter's behind us. Twitter's dead. I don't think we should use Twitter. I think we should just let's migrate to a different platform. Let's migrate into this.
I have to use Twitter. It's my job.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Anyway, look, let's wrap it up there. I really enjoyed it. Thank you, RHOADY, for coming along.
Thanks for having me, Alan.
Yeah, no, it was a pleasure. Thank you, guys. Let's all remain respectful. If you enjoyed it, guys in VC or anyone, if the video comes out, if you enjoy it, join the server. Let us know. Let us, give some feedback. I might make a feedback channel. Maybe we'll get the mods on it. But thank you guys. I won't go on any longer. Thank you guys for coming.
Next, we'll discuss if physical Super Saiyan 2 Gohan is good enough or not.
We're not touching that. We're never touching that.